Hi, third graders. We're going to do another lesson on paragraph writing, on describing characters, and we're going to use the story called The Monster in the Attic. I gave you a copy of this folder or this paper in your red folder, so if you have it, go ahead and grab it so you can follow along with me. All right, let's get started. All right, I want you to think back to the story that we read a couple weeks ago called Boomtown. When we describe characters, and in this case Amanda, we use their traits, and that helps us to better understand the story because we can understand why characters act or behave in a certain way, and those behaviors or their actions cause events in the story to happen. So in the story, we have Amanda, and one word that we would use to describe her could be motivated. That means she really wants to get things done. Driven, that's another word to mean get things done. And because those two words describe her personality or her character, that character trait leads to the events that happen in the story. For example, she was able to get everybody who came to her little boomtown to start a new business. She had a general store, she had a small little doctor, they had a blacksmith, they had people that sold food for animals, and that all happened because she was driven or motivated to get these businesses started so that her town could be a boom town. So that is how a character's behavior, their action or their behaviors, their personality traits lead to the actions that happen in a story. And that brings us to today's learning target, which is today we will describe characters in a story using either their traits or motivations, that means why they're doing things, or their feelings. And then we're going to explain how their actions contribute to the sequence of events. So those traits that we use to describe a character actually create the sequence of events in a story. All right, so this story called The Monster in the Attic is in your red reading folder, and hopefully you have it out. If not, pause the video and go grab it because we're going to read along with the story together. While we are reading, of course we do a close read, I'm going to have you read along with me just to find out what the story is about. And then I'll give you a purpose for the second read. So follow along with me. Bang, rattle, clang. Lucia jumped. Not wanting to deal with the scary noises coming from her attic, Lucia turned up her music and tried to drown them out. But minutes later, Lucia's little brother Al burst into her room. "There's a monster in the attic," he gasped between sobs. "You have to do something." Something or anything was the last thing Lucia wanted to do. "There's no such thing as monsters," she reminded her brother and herself. But as her brother looked at Lucia with tears in his eyes, she knew she had to go face the monster in the attic. Lucia took a deep breath and opened the attic door. As she climbed the stairs, the noises grew louder and louder, and Lucia got more and more scared. Suddenly, an animal flew past her feet and banged against the wall. A squirrel! Lucia let out a sigh of relief. It must have found its way in through an open window. Quickly, Lucia chased the squirrel out the window and shut it. "See," she laughed, "I told you, there's no such thing as monsters." Okay, now that we've read the story together, I want you to read it again a second time on your own, and while you're reading, I want you to find evidence on whether or not you think that Lucia is brave in this story. So as you read through it, I want you to underline evidence that you might find that show that she is brave. So go ahead and pause the video, read the story again, and underline the evidence that you found in the text that shows that she is brave. Okay, now that you have found some pieces of evidence in the story, here's your assignment. Just like on Tuesday, when we read the story Ready to Climb, we're going to write another paragraph that describes how Lucia is brave. We're going to use two pieces of evidence from the story that could be details, events, or actions that the character did that support how she is brave. So grab a paper and a pencil, a lined paper and a pencil, and let's get started on our writing. Okay, let's do a quick reminder of how we're going to organize our paragraph writing. The first sentence is going to have the title of the story, which is The Monster in the Attic. The same sentence is also going to state the character's trait or feeling, and in this case, we're talking about, is she brave? So that's our character trait. And then the third thing that we're including in that same sentence is the reason that we think that the character fits that trait, why do we think that Lucia is brave? And then we're going to cite two pieces of evidence from the text that could be her actions, her thoughts. It could also be an event that happened that shows that she is brave. So let's get started on the writing. Okay, you're going to write along with me. So again, remember, we need to state the title of the story in the first sentence, which is called our topic sentence. That way, the reader knows what story we're writing about, who the character is, and how are we describing that character. So the first part needs to look like this. In the story, The Monster in the Attic. The second part of that sentence needs to state the character trait or feeling. So it's going to look like this. Now, this is not the second sentence. This is still the same sentence. A word I would use to describe Lucia is brave. The third part is the reason why we think that Lucia is brave. So again, remember, this is all one sentence. And the last part looks like this. Because she faced her fears to find out what was making the noise in the attic. So that whole first sentence says, in the story, The Monster in the Attic, a word I would use to describe Lucia is brave because she faced her fears to find out what was making the noise in the attic. Now, you don't have to exactly write the reason the way I did. If you could come up with a different way on explaining why you think she was brave, then you can change it to your own words. Okay, the next part of the paragraph is going to be evidence. So I asked you to write two pieces of evidence. So the first one we need to use, well, actually both of them are going to come from the text, but the first one we need to indicate that this is one detail that shows why she is brave, or one event, or one action. So here's what I came up with. But before I show you, I want you to think, what is one reason or one piece of evidence from the text that shows that she was brave? Okay, so here's one that I came up with. One action that showed she was brave was she looked at her brother with tears in his eyes and knew she had to face the monster in the attic. So that's one piece of evidence that I found in the text. If you found another piece of evidence that shows that she is brave, then you're more than welcome to write that. Okay, now I want you to think of a second piece of evidence from the text that shows that she was brave. So think about it. Okay, and here's what I came up with. Another action that showed Lucia was brave was she took a deep breath and opened the attic door. So that told me that Lucia was being brave because she didn't really want to open the door, because when you take a deep breath, it's like you have to gather all of the courage. So I know that that was something that she didn't really want to do, but she did it anyway because she knew she had to do it for her brother. So that shows that she is brave. If you came up with a different piece of evidence that shows she is brave, you're more than welcome to write that there. Okay, so your paragraph should include the topic sentence, which has the title of the story, the trait, which is brave, and the reason why you think that she was brave. And then the last two sentences are your pieces of evidence from the text that shows why Lucia was brave. All right, boys and girls, so here's your assignment. Again, pretty simple. I want you to finish writing the paragraph that we just did together. If you didn't copy it while we did it together, go back, rewind the video, and finish writing it. If you did it while we were working together, then you're finished. When you're done, I want you to keep the paper in your red reading folder because you're going to use the one from Tuesday and this one for a guide on how to write a paragraph on character traits for your test tomorrow, which is going to be a story about Cleopatra. So if you did all that, nice work, and we'll see you next time. Good job, boys and girls.